Hey guys, welcome to Ex-Brother Bryce, and today we're going to be talking about my Mormon missionary experience to Argentina Resistencia. Let's get into the video. My experience as a Mormon missionary was very positive during my experience, and I will say that much, is that while I was there and all the things that I experienced, it was very positive. From what I could tell, I will tell you about some of the things that kind of sat on my shelf a little bit while I was serving a mission. And here we go. I went on a mission knowing that it was kind of expected of me, that my oldest brother did serve a mission, and one of my older brothers did not serve a mission. And I felt that the oldest brother was treated better because he went and served a mission, and it kind of brought honor to the family. It's interesting how in Mormonism and in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, what a mouthful, is that a family kind of receives respect or honor based on how well their children are in the different events, and if they're checking off the different events in the Mormon Church as they're going up. And really, the mission, I believe, is the male was, and now female, kind of becoming a man or a woman, going out in the world and spreading the gospel. And so I did feel that that was something that I needed to do. Interestingly enough, right before I went on my mission, my parents separated and lived separate for some time. And this is 8 kids. There's 8 kids in my family. I'm here in the middle. And it was really interesting. Not interesting, but it was kind of hard because I had put a lot of faith and a lot of my testimony coming from my parents, leading me through the different things. And I relied a lot on them being the security in life. They were the stable thing. And the divorce ended up finalizing a couple of months before I reported to the MTC in Provo, Utah. So it was really interesting to kind of cling to the idea of the mission, even though, my family, potentially my eternal family, was falling apart. And it kind of caused a rift or a separation between the kids on, what to do with the parents that are separating, right? And so, whether you pick a side or whether you're on, kind of just love and hopefully everything works out. Something that I learned from myself is that I could not control other people. I could just love, and that was it. I couldn't make a decision for them. I could just love. And that was kind of what I leaned on throughout my whole mission and several years coming back after my mission. So I go out into the MTC and immediately make a bunch of good friends. I'm there in Provo culture, and so it's not as much of a culture shock. But there is a very unique culture inside the MTC of many of my missionary companions described it as spiritual prison, spirit prison, because there were very strict rules on waking up, on going to bed, on reporting to your classroom on time, on being with your companion at all times. You're studying a language, rigorously night and day, and it is pretty difficult. I was there for 8 weeks for a Spanish speaking mission, and a usual missionary was 3 weeks. So someone serving stateside or English speaking usually was about 3 weeks. And I understand that that's been shortened recently. But when I went through in 2009, that's what was happening. And we had little fun things that we would do, like our whole district would get together and we would try and eat all of the cereal in one dispenser. They had these cereal dispensers, and the Cocoa Puffs would go all the way up really high, and then we would eat it all the way down, bowls and bowls. And that was a fun little thing to, as a district, that we did. Overall, and something that I did do that was really fun. I sang the song "I Know My Redeemer Lives," which is a very spiritual or emotional, I guess, song. Maybe I can find a clip of me doing that and show that to you. But yeah, I was able to sing. It's probably in front of about 5,000 people, missionaries, there at the MTC, and it was really moving. And I was really proud that I got to do that. They sent a copy home to my family, and it was neat. So going through the MTC, no real kind of and the rigorous part of it being spirit prison, I took it more as like a boot camp of being spiritual, and the more obedient you could be, the better you could be able to teach and receive blessings. And in their manual, Preach My Gospel manual, a lot of that was hinted towards, of the more exact you can be with the missionary schedule, the more exact you can be with making sure you're staying with your companion, you're testifying that you can have the Spirit with you, and you can have blessings, and you can receive blessings for doing that. So we leave the MTC and we get on this big flight with a bunch of missionaries on it, and we fly over to LA and then down to Peru, about a 13-hour flight, Lima, Peru, and we switch flights there to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and then we hopped on another small flight to Resistencia, Argentina, and we arrived to the mission president, who is Argentine, and we slept, I remember, on bunks of 3 or 4 levels high. It was really hot. I don't know if there was AC, but I remember sweating a lot. And it wasn't too bad. It was a little bit of a culture shock. There was, different, there's a lot of motorcycles and scooters and beat up cars. And I remember the mission president from Buenos Aires, we had a meal together when we got there, just before we got on a bus to go all the way out to the mission. A big 16-ounce Coca-Cola, and we never drank Coke. We didn't really drink a lot of soda, but especially we tried to steer away from caffeine in soda. And so that was kind of interesting for me. I was like, hey, don't they know this is kind of like, they shouldn't be drinking the caffeine? I know even at BYU, they don't even have caffeine or caffeinated products, I believe, till today. They have different types of soda or caffeine-free root beer, And so that was an interesting little shelf item. I'm like, hey, president, mission president, serving us, caffeinated soda, like, what? And the meal's good. Anyways, we slept, we woke up, and we had a little kind of small conference with all of the new missionaries, and we got assigned our senior companions, and mine was from Buenos Aires, and so he didn't speak English. And I honestly did not speak very good Spanish. I knew like words for oración and like different, that's prayer in Spanish, and different, gospel related words. But as far as like just normal conversation, it was really difficult. And I remember we took a bus. We lived in the same city, or on the outskirts of Resistencia. And so we bussed all the way out to our area, and we got ready for bed, and I laid down. There's a cement floor, and there's an old smelly bed, and I lay on it, and it's hot, super hot. And we each have an individual fan that's blowing on us, and we're just sleeping in our garments. and sweating to death. And I laid there and I just started crying. I started bawling my eyes out. And it's because I was terrified of what the next 2 years would be. Like I said, is this it? Is this what I just walked into? Like, this is a terrible decision. Um, couldn't talk to my companion for weeks, just like I would say stuff, but he wouldn't understand. and the members didn't understand what I was saying. And so I didn't speak to anybody that like spoke English. So I was just alone. And thinking post mission, I had the thought about depression and anxiety and any type of mental illness. I thought that it was, that those people were really foolish and stupid. They should just change. It's in your mind. It's all in your head. Just be better. Just be happy. Like, what are you doing? Choose to be happy. And so at that moment, I didn't even realize, what I was going through, because I did have, the anxiety, maybe not, I don't know, towards depression, but I was still under the belief that this was just part of the mission. It's just something you go through and it'll make you better. And which to some point I do agree. My mission was very helpful in rounding out, being a better person and going through some hard stuff and coming out better because of it. Now, a little bit further into my mission, I was able to get an American companion, and we served in a small village, the village of Itati, which is over by Corrientes, Argentina. And it's a beautiful town, and I looked at it as kind of an evil town because there's a very large cathedral, or basilica is what they called it, and it had a huge 13-foot statue of the Virgin Mary. And there's a really cool story of a priest and the Virgin Mary appearing to him on the banks of that big river, a river which we later baptized people in. And just on the other side is Paraguay. And so that town, it's kind of a town that it's based on Catholicism. So if you converted to Mormonism, you kind of got beer bottles thrown at you. You got, just a lot of hate because people didn't understand. You could lose jobs for, giving the missionaries time of day, much less, convert. And so that was interesting. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. And so this is some evil town. And now I look at it, I'm like, wow, that's a beautiful place. And they make a pilgrimage to it. It's probably about an hour's drive away. People would walk from the city of Corrientes over to Itati. And just a really cool looking basilica. Yeah, and so I had a really great time there. My companion and I really got along well. It was bumpy at first, but we made a really great relationship, and we taught the gospel, man. We found people, we baptized them, and unfortunately, many of those converts kind of just fell away from the church in Latin America. They're really poor people, and so they're not really educated. They don't look into Mormonism like people in London and the UK, Germany, different areas, Italy. They look into the Mormon church online, and that never ever really happened to me on the mission. I know there's a lot of talks of people that had those types of experiences where they question like the Book of Mormon, being actual historical truth. But yeah, and so that never really shaped my faith there. I never really knew any of the issues with Mormonism in my mission. I just knew it was hard, and eventually I did get a hold of the language, and we were able to do stuff there in Itati. I really got a hold of the language, and we were obedient as heck. We would get up at the right time. We would do our exercise. We'd go to bed at the right time. We would even not speak English because we thought that we could get better, the spirit better, and if we would just speak Spanish all the time, even though we're both, stateside. We're born in the States, me and my companion. Anyways, several funny stories in there, like getting food poisoning and different things. But I can do that maybe in a funny video. There's many funny stories, but the purpose of this video being, just my mission experience and my testimony through it. So towards the end of the mission, I end up training a couple of missionaries, being a zone leader, and one particular time I remember doing a baptismal interview for a man, and I felt bad about this during the time, but I gave him the baptismal interview, and it was the sisters, two sisters that were getting him prepared for baptism, and I was doing the baptism interview, which in the baptism interview you are asked questions about: do you live the law of chastity? Do you live the word of wisdom, meaning no smoking, drinking, stuff like that, no coffee? And he answered all the questions right, but for some reason, like the whole time, there was a kind of an off smell, like he smelled like stinky. And come later in the week, when he showed up for his baptism, he showed up drunk, and he just smelled like wine. And I didn't know what wine smelled like. I didn't know, like, it's kind of like this thing in Mormonism where you just kind of turn your brain off to anything that's bad, and you don't like look into it. And so obviously I knew the smell of smoke, because that's kind of easier to figure out. But like these people in Argentina, a lot of them are just stinky. And so I couldn't tell the difference, and guess I didn't have the discernment to figure out that he was not, ready. He wasn't following the word of wisdom because he was drinking wine, obviously. So I felt really bad about that. I felt like almost that I betrayed the Spirit, or I betrayed, that I did a very bad thing. And it hurt me. Like I went under a lot of anxiety for making similar mistakes like that. And it was just really embarrassing. And I actually don't remember if they went through with the baptism. I actually wasn't there for the baptism, if they went through with it or if they stopped it. But yeah, the sisters called me later and they're like, yeah, he smelled like wine. I'm like, that's what he smelled like. The wear and tear of the obedience really started to get me towards the end of my mission, where I was like, man, this is really hard to keep doing this and but I am I'm going to keep doing it because I need we need baptisms. Oh, baptisms. In my mission, regularly we would have baptisms mission wide, 200 to 400, sometimes over 400 baptisms a month. Think about that. Just throwing so many people into the water. It is insane down there. And I think one of the reasons is that they're more poor and they're not educated. And so they just feel good, and they are told nothing about the issues with the church. Zero. Church history? Nope. Nothing. And it's I mean, that happens here in the US too. But people do look into things, and they have the internet. I mean, they have the internet down there, but to get the internet, we had to go to these internet cafes, which were really sketchy, and get on one of these computers which had a bunch of viruses on it for sure, and to read our families and stuff. And that's another thing, we couldn't contact our families often, and so there was like this separation, like a lot of anxiety caused by that. But again, I just put that into the bundle of, this is hard for me, but I'm going to figure it out, and it's going to be better. I'm going to be better off because of it. But yeah, I remember calling my family and reading them scriptures and crying because I missed them, and it was pretty rough. It's pretty rough stuff. Oh man, and I had heard of other missionaries getting in trouble and being sent home, and some that went home because medical reasons, but I later figured out it was usually just mental stress. Like they were just burnt out, and several of them had a really solid cognitive dissonance with actual church truth claims that they would be teaching the restoration and they just couldn't. They would be teaching about Joseph Smith and they just couldn't. The first vision, they just couldn't. And so I didn't know that until later, but I just saw them as like, oh, okay, all right, you just can't hack it, whatever. Felt really bad about judging them so strongly, but even my second companion that I got, um, he purposefully overdosed on 30, uh, 30 pills. Luckily, they were just a multivitamin, but um, yeah, he ended up getting sent home. He survived. I was able to call the mission president. He was a senior companion. He tosses me the phone and he says, "I just took this, all of them. Call the mission president." And I did. And I was like, "What? Why are you doing this to me? This is terrible." Um, Later on, I met him at BYU. That was interesting. But yeah, I know he was probably just going through from some severe mental stress and anxiety because there's so much put on you as a missionary to get these baptisms, get these contacts, talk, 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 sell, sell, sell. It's pretty rough. It is really rough. But I hacked it out and I came out of my mission strong, and I was sure it was true. Even during while I was on the mission, I read came upon the Book of Abraham, which I wasn't really taught much in seminaries, kind of glossed over. But I went into like the Egyptian hieroglyphs and the different things about the Melchizedek priesthood in the Egyptian hieroglyphs and how Abraham, certain things. And I had no idea, zero, that there was any question that the Egyptian hieroglyphs were not translated correctly. I took them as truth. And the church knew and is known for almost a century about the Book of Abraham and about the issues and many, many more issues that they don't reveal to their members, even the ones that we're baptizing. We don't even know. And we're baptizing people that they don't know. And so the honesty factor there is just really painful to know now. And you can see I made a video on the Book of Abraham, something that's really striking to my core. One of the tippy top things of like this, I definitely need to leave over this. Not leave over this, but like it disturbed me. But during the mission, it built my faith, and so the mission really was something that was a big check mark for me. I held on to the church because I couldn't hold on to my family anymore because they were divorced. Questions about, eternal families, And so I came home and served honorably, came back, and I guess the rest of its history. I checked off all those boxes of finding a young woman, LDS, took her through the temple. We got married, had kids quite quickly because of what the church's stance is on it. Still thinking that it was right, but wish that we might have waited a bit longer to figure out who we are, because now we're doing that right now while we have kids. And so if my kids are watching this later on, sorry, we're kids just learning along with you, but hopefully we'll all be able to figure ourselves out. And I know that's a lifelong process, but I'm just now making decisions that I should have made in my teens and in my 20s. I just turned 30 a little while ago, and yeah, it is a trip, quite the trip. But I really do feel that. Oh, and something else that I learned is that we were unpaid, of course, on the mission, and we touted that as like, yes, we're here, as young teenage boys, and we aren't paid. And none of the leaders of the church are paid. Bishops aren't paid. General authorities aren't paid. The prophet's not paid. It's all just service and serving God, and it's wonderful. And that is really interesting. If there isn't the financial motivation well, I mean, there is tithing that you have to pay to be faithful, but to know it's going to a good cause and to temples and stuff, and that's where we explained tithing went. It didn't go to anything else, but apparently it does. There in 2014 it came out that there was a living um, oh goodness, it's called like a living benefit or something, um, and and the general authorities receive those. The prophet on the 12, it's like 120,000 and probably more for somebody more higher rank. But just surprising stuff. We were out there deliberately lying about things, and nobody was correcting us because it felt good, to say that we're all of our leaders aren't paid. It felt good. Like that's pretty cool. Um, but yeah, had no idea. So I was very Peter Priesthood. Let's do it, get it done, follow the Lord, and this is all amazing. So it was quite the crash down, um, and it's still less than a year ago since finding out all these new things. You can watch my video about why I left the church, and yeah, I still look fondly back on my mission, and I know that I did certain things, um, that I don't agree with anymore. As far as the obedience, as far as the mental health issues going through. And I hope that the church can do better with that. I know that you can now contact your family at any time, and it's a little more open. So that's pretty cool. Also, something that I couldn't really deal with or think about is coming home early and having to deal with the damaged goods I would be about trying to find somebody to marry that knows that I came home early from a mission to serve an honorable, be a full time, return missionary. That's pretty rough. That's pretty rough that you feel, out on the mission. So, um, but overall, the people were amazing. People were really cool. We ended up, while I was a zone leader, we baptized a family that owned a car, which to own a car in Argentina, especially the area in Resistencia, that was pretty cool. They were well off to have a car, and it was a really cool experience. About them converting, from Catholicism, and they were really devout. And to this day, they're still devout. And I kind of am a little terrified about them finding out about me, and not being, still believing. Um, and they joined having not known all the things that I know, about Mormonism. And so, pretty quickly, several months after, um, one of the converts, he becomes the second council in the bishopric, and later on ends up serving in the stake presidency. And she ends up being primary president, and I believe eventually Relief Society president. Just like really stalwart, awesome people, and I was so proud of these people, so proud, and I still love them. I still love them so much. Just it's a little bit tainted because I feel like I brought them in under false pretenses and didn't give them the whole story as to what the Mormon Church is, its history, its current, things that they do. I know that there can be good things and good things happen within the Mormon Church, but yeah, they were Catholic, but kind of they were one of those twice a year Catholics. So they were like just kind of having a good time in life. And then I came in and I get them into this really rigorous religion that tells them that they'll get into heaven only based on their works and what they do in this life. And they went to the temple and got sealed, and like that's just they checked all the things that a missionary would want, for a convert family. And it was just them two. They didn't have all their kids were out of the house by that time. But it was special, and it still is special today. Just with a little bit of like, awkwardness, I guess. She would usually call me for every birthday, um, and we still chat over Facebook Messenger. But yeah, that's just hard stuff. Anyways, if you have any questions about my mission story, put them in the comments and give this video a like if you liked it and it gave you value, and you can share it with someone that maybe it'll give them value as well. And subscribe to this channel for more content, and we'll see you on the next one.